Well, in another kind of new element being brought to the entire Paramount Warner Brothers potential merger lawsuit, maybe there will be a merger, maybe they won't be, sort of thing. The LA County decided to commission a report by an independent third party firm looking at what would the economic impact be on LA and in California should Paramount and the Warner Brothers merger go through. Now, of course, you guys remember Netflix was also trying to get their hands on Warner Brothers. And I think I speak for all of us on the show when I say our general preference was that nobody buy Warner Brothers and that Warner Brothers just be left alone as its own thing. But you remember that Netflix was trying to get it. Now, had Netflix have gotten it, it would have been Netflix entering into the movie, the theatrical movie business, something they had never been in. And one of their big strong commitments was, we're not going to touch Warner Brothers. It's going to stay as its own thing. It's going to operate as its own thing. We're not going to lay anybody off because we have no overlap. We are a streaming company. They're a movie company, blah, blah, blah. But we knew just by the nature of it, because Paramount is also a theatrical movie company, that there would be some redundancies. And when there are redundancies, that means layoffs. Well, IndieWire is now reporting on a report that was done that showed that the Paramount purchase of Warner Brothers could cost the studios 4,500 jobs and over 10,000 jobs in the entertainment space in general. This is the report that came out. Here's the highlights from the report as reported in the Hollywood Reporter. Paramount's purchase of Warner Brothers Discovery could be devastating for California and the entertainment industry, costing the state 4,500 film and TV production jobs and putting at risk $1.26 billion in wages, according to a new report commissioned by the Los Angeles County. The assessment comes from the independent third party CVL Economics, which notes that the union of the two entertainment conglomerates will force the companies to cut costs aggressively as they try to pay down nearly $80 billion in debt, which of course will be out of the total $110 billion of debt. The study's authors estimate that the merger could have as much wider impact across the states, putting at risk 10,360 jobs, ranging from producers and agents to people who rent sound equipment. So this is all, of course, a third-party independent assessment that was commissioned by the local government to take a look at and see what would happen. Now, again, to be fair to Paramount, whenever you have a vertical kind of merger like this, you're going to get overlap. You're going to get redundancy. Just for example, if you have somebody who's the head of sanitation on the studio lot, well, you don't need two, you need one. And that always leads to some layoffs. It's not like Paramount would be the only one doing that. We've seen that happen with other mergers and acquisitions. It'll always be a part of it. But what they weren't prepared for was that number was going to be quite that high. And when you're talking about 10,000 jobs, that gets kind of excessive. And listen, I think that would be 10,000 jobs, guys. And that's not Paramount being jerks about it. I think that would be Paramount just literally going in and saying, what jobs do we still need and what jobs do we not? And you don't keep jobs that you don't need to pay for just because. I mean, you cut those jobs, and that's just one of the things. Again, Paramount wouldn't be the only guys.
Debt.
What's that?
Not with their debt.
Not with their debt. I mean, but it's what happens whenever there's a merger, right? So this wouldn't just be a Paramount thing. This is a thing that generally happens. But that doesn't take away from the stark harshness of the reality of this will probably mean within those two studios alone, 4,500 people are going to get fired. And then the effect on the wider industry is probably going to be over 10,000 jobs. And that's significant and more than some other mergers we've seen. Now, I like to go back to this every time we talk about the Paramount Warner Brothers merger, particularly about the lawsuits, because I see a lot of people in our own chat board and online trying to make it about things that it's not about. People try to make it about, cults of personality. People try to make it about politics. Some people, whatever. But I like to remind everybody about this, so indulge me as I do. But for those of you who have not had your eyes open to this, this is about one thing and one thing only. This is about the law. And if you don't understand the law, feel free to copy and paste this and use it as your reference. But this is your basic cheat sheet to understanding the current state of the lawsuit, why it's happening, and why it doesn't look great for Paramount right now. Step one, the Clayton Act, which is the law, specifically says that it prohibits any mergers that may substantially lessen competition in an industry or tend to create a monopoly. Well, what defines whether it lessens competition or creates a monopoly? What's the definition of that? The law doesn't say, but then the Supreme Court did step in and said the definition is 30%. The Supreme Court threshold, the court held that a horizontal merger resulting in a single firm controlling at least 30% of a market creates a rebuttable presumption that the merger is inherently anti-competitive and unlawful to Section 7. Part 1, the law says you can't have a merger if it lessens competition and could lead to a monopoly. Part 2, the Supreme Court ruled that the definition of that is 30%. If a merger creates a 30% domination in a market, that lessens competition and that can lead to a monopoly. Step 3, the judge hearing this case has already ruled that it looks like the state has provided evidence that this merger will result in Paramount. As it says in the one line, on this combined firm market share alone, the court is persuaded that it can presume that the proposed merger is likely to violate antitrust laws. That's it. That's what this whole thing is about. You hear anybody else chirping, trying to make it sound like it's about other things, this is it. This is the law. The law says can't have a merger if it creates anti-competitiveness. The Supreme Court said the definition of that is 30%, and a judge has already ruled, yep, it looks like this merger is going to create more than a 30%, which ergo violates the law. That's all this is about. Now, they're still trying to see if they can settle this, and I hope they do. But the only way this is going to get settled is if Paramount voluntarily gives up some massive assets that would take them under the 30% threshold. So whether that means giving up HBO Max, whether that means giving up all the TV networks, not just one of them, all of them, whether that means keeping everything else but giving up Warner Brothers Pictures, they're going to have to give up something. Settlement means you got to give up something. And so far, the only thing Paramount has said they're willing to give up is CNN. And that's a 1% thing. That's nothing. That's a nothing burger in all this. It doesn't move the needle. So I hope they're able to settle this and not drag everybody through a 1.5 year long thing of this. But anyway, Rob, we've talked a lot on this show about, the lawsuit. We've talked a lot about why the things we like, the things we don't like, all this kind of stuff. But now we have this independent third party thing giving us this report, putting now actual numbers to it. This could cost up to 10,000 jobs, which again would not be, this isn't Paramount's fault because it wouldn't be unique to Paramount, but it doesn't change the fact that it would be 10,000 jobs. As somebody who has worked in this industry for as long as you have, for somebody who has worked with unspeakable numbers of people who are affected by what goes on in this industry, and as somebody who's worked in this industry in this district, what did you make of this report and what really stands out to you the most?
Well, look, I think it's really terrifying, to be honest, because the ramifications are not just within the industry, it's with the entire city of Los Angeles. I was watching a video yesterday about Sunset Boulevard, which is a place that I spent a good 20 years frequenting, going to clubs when I was in my 20s and going to other places like the House of Blues when I was in my 30s. And it's basically gone. All of these, so many storefronts are closed. And this is the world famous Sunset Boulevard where all the rock and roll clubs used to be. And the problem is there's no industry. LA, people don't realize how dire it already is here. And to lose all of these jobs, if we're not going to bring production back to this city, the industry people have to understand that it's everything. It's bars, it's restaurants, it's dry cleaners, it's car dealerships, it's all the other businesses that
Right.
require economic strength.
Ancillary.
Ancillary businesses, yeah, for everything. If there's 10,000 jobs, probably multiplies out to 250,000 jobs. I wouldn't be surprised that every one person out of work, that's 25 more people that are out of work
Well,
because of all the different. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jonathan.
no. And to your point, it's just like this came off of a big promise that Paramount was in the best position to move this industry forward by what? Consolidating it and shrinking it and making fewer jobs and fewer, it's like, come on.
Well, also, you think about these, you have two major film backlots. And my first regular industry job was I worked for the senior vice president of feature film production at Warner Brothers, Bill Young. And when I worked there, this is in the, 89, 90, the lot was abuzz. We had 15 films going at any one time, and a lot of them were being shot on the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank, and you're butting up against Universal Studios on one end. You walk a block down and there was Disney, and it was a buzz with activity. And then over the last 35 years, everything has gone to Canada, Chicago, Louisiana, Georgia. Now things are moving over to England. I mean, we're killing our industry, and it's not just the industry itself, it's everybody that benefits from a healthy economy. And LA is a city that we're a zombie city as it is.
And by the way, I still see some people in the live chat going on about, guys, you got to start spreading this around. There's a myth that gets perpetuated about this. It says, well, why didn't anybody try to stop the Disney Fox merger? They did. The Department of Justice sued to stop the Disney and Fox acquisition. And what happened was they settled. How did they settle? Disney gave up a big chunk of the stuff. They gave up Fox News. They gave up tons of local networks. They gave up FS1. They gave up FS2. They gave up a lot of stuff, which is why Fox still exists. Fox is something separate and different. And the studios now called 20th Century. So again, just clarify that. They did sue to stop the Disney merger. It's just that they settled and Disney was willing to give up a big chunks to take them under the 30% threshold. That's what we're all hoping can happen now with the Paramount Warner Brother deal. Anyway, guys, whatever you think about this whole thing now, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.